Hello friends, and welcome to part 1 of covering all American wars. Today we are starting off with the American Revolutionary War. Date, April 19th, 1775 to September 3rd, 1783. 8 years, 4 months, 2 weeks, and 1 day. Result, American victory. America gains treaty east of the Mississippi River. March 5th, 1770, the Boston Massacre was a confrontation in which a group of 9 British soldiers killed 3 people of a crowd of 300 or 400 who were ambushing them verbally and throwing various missiles. The event was heavily publicized as a massacre by leading patriots such as Paul Revere and Samuel Adams. British troops had been stationed in the province of Massachusetts Bay since 1768 in order to support Crown-appointed officials and to enforce unpopular parliamentary legislation. December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party was an American political and mercantile protest by the Sons of Liberty. The target was the Tea Act of May 10, 1773, which allowed the British East India Company to sell tea from China and American colonies without paying taxes. Apart from those imposed by the Townshend Acts, the Sons of Liberty strongly opposed the taxes in the Townshend Acts as a violation of their rights. Protesters, some disguised as American Indians, destroyed an entire shipment of tea sent by the East India Company. April 19, 1775, the official start of the American Revolutionary War, started with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The first shots were fired just as the sun was rising at Lexington. 8 militiamen were killed, including Ensign Robert Monroe, their third in command. The British suffered only 1 casualty. The militia was outnumbered and fell back, and the regulars proceeded on to Concord, where they broke apart into companies to search for the supplies at North Bridge and Concord. Approximately 400 militiamen engaged 100 regulars from 3 companies of the King's troops at about 11 a.m., resulting in casualties on both sides. The outnumbered regulars fell back from the bridge and rejoined the main body of the British forces in Concord. June 17, 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought during the Siege of Boston in the first stage of the American Revolutionary War. The battle is named after the Bunker Hill in Charlestown, Massachusetts, which was previously involved in the battle. It was the original objective of both colonial and British troops, though the majority of combat took place on the adjacent hill, which later became known as Breed's Hill. July 4, 1776, the Declaration of Independence is signed during the Second Continental Congress, officially declaring the 13 colonies no longer a part of the British and their own country. United States, in doing this, Americans were considered traitors and the POWs were often killed or executed. September 22, 1776, the British captured and hung an American spy in New York City. Hill was marched along the post road to a public house called the Dove Tavern and hanged. He was 21 years old. Hale is considered an American hero, and in 1985 was officially designated as the State Hero of Connecticut. December 27, 1776, George Washington and the Continental Army crossed the Delaware River into New Jersey in a surprise attack on the British. They had a decisive victory that helped turn the war back to the Americans' favor. December 26, 1776, the Battle of Trenton was a small but pivotal battle. After General Washington's crossing of the Delaware River north of Trenton the previous night, Washington led the main body of the Continental Army against Haitian auxiliaries garrisoned at Trenton. After a brief battle, almost 2/3 of the Haitian force were captured, with negligible losses to the Americans. The battle significantly boosted the Army's waning morale and inspired re-enlistments. January 3, 1777, the Battle of Princeton ended in a small victory for the Colonials. General Lord Cornwallis had left 1,400 troops under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Charles Mahwood in Princeton. Washington advanced to Princeton by a back road where he pushed back a smaller British force but had to retreat before Cornwallis arrived with reinforcements. Battles of Trenton and Princeton were a boost to the morale of the Patriot cause, leading many recruits to join the Continental Army in the spring. October 4, 1777, the Battle of Germantown was a major engagement in the Philadelphia campaign. It was fought at Germantown, Pennsylvania, between the British Army led by Sir William Howe and the American Continental Army, with the 2nd Canadian Regiment under George Washington. February 6, 1778, Franklin's popularity and persuasive powers and the key American battlefield victory were crucial factors that led France to join the war. Declaration of Independence was well received across France, and Franklin was warmly welcomed when he arrived in Paris in December, charming his way to celebrity status. June 21, 1779, Spain's motivation to help the American colonists was driven by a desire to regain the land it had lost to Britain and, with other European powers, make incremental gains against the British possessions in other parts of the world. In April, Spain fully committed to helping the Americans. March 29th to May 12, 1780, the Siege of Charleston was a major engagement and major British victory fought in the environs of Charleston, the capital of South Carolina. The British, following the collapse of their northern strategy in late 1777 and their withdrawal from Philadelphia in 1778, shifted their focus to the American southern colonies. September 5, 1781, the Battle of Chesapeake was a crucial naval battle. The combatants were a British fleet led by Rear Admiral Sir Thomas Graves and a French fleet led by Rear Admiral Francois Joseph Paul, the Comte de Grasse. The battle was strategically decisive in that it prevented the Royal Navy from reinforcing or evacuating the besieged force of Lieutenant General Lord Cornwallis at Yorktown, Virginia. The French were able to achieve the control of sea lanes against the British and provide the Franco-American army with a siege of artillery and French reinforcements. September 28th to October 19th, 1781, the siege of Yorktown was a decisive victory by a combined force of the American Continental Army troops led by General George Washington and Marquis de Lafayette, and the French army troops led by Robichaud, over a British army commanded by British Peer and Lieutenant General Charles Cornwallis. Culmination of the Yorktown campaign, the siege proved to be the last major land battle of the American Revolutionary War in the North American region, as the surrender of Cornwallis and the capture of both him and his treaty prompted the British government to negotiate an end in conflict. September 3rd, 1783, the Treaty of Paris is signed in Paris by representatives of King George III of Great Britain and representatives of the United States of America, officially ended the war. The treaty set the boundaries between the British Empire in North America and the United States of America on the lines of exceedingly generous to the latter. Details included fishing rights and restoration of property and prisoners of war. November 23, 1783, Evacuation Day, officially marking the end of the British occupation of America. The last of the British soldiers who served during the American Revolution had left Manhattan, New York. Strength: the United States had 42,131 in 1775. France had 10,800 troops in 1778. Spain had 12,000 in 1779. Great Britain had 48,000 in 1775. Loyalists 25,000 in 1775. Haitians 29,875 in 1776. American natives 13,000 to 1775. Casualties: United States 600 dead, 6,800 dead, 6,100 wounded. France 2,112 dead. Spain 4,371 dead. Great Britain 8,500 dead. Loyalists 7,000 dead. Haitians 7,774 dead. American natives 500 dead. Civilians 217,000 dead. 147,000 due to disease, and 70,000 war dead.